Welcome to Hannity. Hope you had a great Fourth with you and your family. And tonight, shocking news developments in the highly unusual federal probe into Hunter Biden that did more to protect the Biden family than actually investigate any potential real crimes. Also tonight, Sarah Carter, she will join us with more on today's San Francisco's reparations panel, where one member accused straight white men of being serial killers. Also, more racist attacks from the left against Justice Clarence Thomas, now Casey DeSantis. It seems like if you're an African-American conservative or the wife of a prominent conservative, well, you can be called any name in today's woke world. Why is that? But first, let's check in with your Commander-in-Chief, Joe. Now, this was Joe over the weekend. Now, watch this closely here. He was on a very crowded beach in Delaware. Of course, he has this expensive home on a senator's salary on the beach, struggling. Look at him struggle here to try and move a beach chair that probably weighs all of 2 pounds and take it a few feet. And then look at the sitting. It's not exactly very comfortable. Is he going to make it? Is he going to tip over? Good, Joey. Very good. Anyway, tough couple of days for your president. Now, earlier in the week, the administration was reeling after a bag of cocaine was actually found in a secure area of the West Wing. So far, 8 days in, it's a total mystery. Who brought the cocaine into the Biden White House? I know where my mind goes. That would be a normal thought process, but you're not allowed to talk about it. Whatever you do, don't dare suggest that the former crack cocaine head, Hunter Biden, could be a suspect. That's a no-no. Forget the pictures of videos of Hunter smoking crack and sleeping. See, dead asleep, and that's a crack pipe right in his mouth. And forget that he was forced to replace all of his teeth with veneers, and I don't have a problem with that because of what they call crack mouth that destroys your teeth when you're a heavy crack user. Now, of course, so far, Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre has refused to rule out any member of the Biden family, but she did call reporters. She said they're irresponsible for daring to ask questions about the cocaine. Take a look.
Can we just say once and for all whether or not the cocaine belonged to the Biden family?
So, a couple of things there. We've answered this question, litigated this question for the last 2 days exhaustively. There has been some irresponsible reporting about the family, and so I got to call that out here. And I have been very clear. I was clear 2 days ago when talking about this over and over again as I was being asked a question. As you know, and media outlets reported this, the Biden family was not here. They were not here. They were at Camp David. They were not here Friday. They were not here Saturday. They were not here Sunday. They were not even here Monday. They came back on Tuesday. So to ask that question is actually incredibly irresponsible. And I'll just leave it there.
No, Karine, it's incredibly irresponsible for you to lie to the American people and say that they were not in the White House on Friday when they didn't leave till late Friday night. We still do not know who brought the hard drugs, cocaine, into the Biden White House. Was it laced with fentanyl? Is anyone asking that question? And why have they not found the person or persons responsible? I would think in that environment with all the Secret Service that would not be the most difficult task for a smart detective. And keep in mind, Joe and Hunter were both there on Friday evening, or at least until Friday evening, in spite of Karine lying to the American people, saying that they were not there on Friday when, in fact, they were. Now, before the misplaced bag of cocaine was found over the weekend. What KJP is getting noticeably frustrated and angry for good reason. Her friends in the media mob, they're not quite as accommodating to the Bidens these days. In fact, many of Biden's most reliable left-wing allies are turning on him. Interestingly, they're all doing it at the same time. Let's take a look at The Atlantic. Quote, step aside, Joe. The president has no business running for office at the age of 80. Axios referred to Joe as Old Yeller in a report about how vicious his quick temper is. And it's so bad that aides avoid meeting with him one-on-one. They even bring in support help if they need it. Anyway, very common condition for older people, by the way, in steep cognitive decline. They often go hand in hand. Meanwhile, an op-ed in The Hill openly wondered, quote, when is the optimal time for Biden to drop out of the race? And then poor Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez blasted by members of her own party after she endorsed Biden for a second term. Why? Because the rest of her party don't want him. Even the United Auto Workers Union, they're now refusing to endorse Biden, at least for now, because of his obsession with green energy and electric cars. And last but certainly not least, liberal columnist Maureen Dowd, New York Times, staple of the Democratic Party's media apparatus, dropped the hammer on Joe Biden in a New York Times op-ed entitled, "It's 7 grandkids, Mr. President." By the way, Maureen, if you'd watched the show more often, you would have known about this a long time ago. During the article, Dowd is recounting a letter from her Biden-loving sister to the president that reads in part, quote, "I watched as you told the nation that you had 6 grandchildren and you loved each one of them." You also claimed that he talked to them daily. I believe that. What I cannot believe and what I find unconscionable is that you refuse to admit or accept the fact that there is a beautiful little 4-year-old girl living in Arkansas by the name of Navy Joan, who is your 7th grandchild. Dowd then continues, quote, "The president's cold shoulder and heart is counter to every message he's trying to send or has sent for decades." Keep in mind, Maureen Dowd defended Bill and Hillary Clinton and pretty much every other prominent Democrat that was faced with any scandal over the years. So this is interesting, isn't it? When you have people like Maureen Dowd and many other reliable Democrats and left-wing journalists turning on Biden, and those that support him are getting excoriated by their own party. Right now, as the presidential election is heating up, do you find the timing odd? The answer is written on the wall. They want both Joe and Kamala out of office, mark my words, and are now working to replace them at the top of the ticket behind the scenes before it's too late. Don't forget, both Joe and Kamala have historically bad poll numbers. The economy's a shambles. World affairs are an absolute unmitigated mess. Most Americans don't even believe Biden's capable of serving a second term, which brings us back to the video of Biden struggling on that crowded beach to even move a beach chair while everyone pretty much ignores him. Compare that to Donald Trump. He was in Vegas over the weekend at the UFC fight, where he was warmly greeted by pretty much everybody in the crowd, friends, supporters, even sometime critic Joe Rogan got in on the action, shaking his hand. Everyone in attendance was excited to see him. Democrats, they were extremely worried about that, quote, enthusiasm gap. No one is excited to see Joe Biden. Why should you be? He is a massive liability. Anybody with eyes to see can see it. Make no mistake, Gavin Newsom's countrywide tour, that's not a sightseeing adventure. That's not, I really think Joe's a great president adventure either. He's ready, he's willing, he's able to step in, and it's probably only a matter of time. Now, my belief has been and remains he is being called and begged daily by prominent Democrats all around the country to jump in this race. That means jump over and replace Kamala Harris in terms of who would be the natural successor. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.